principle has to do with resource allocation. And this is where a lot of companies really struggle because resources get held hostage in divisions or in lines of business or in business units. They're not sort of, it's very hard to get a view across the entire organization and say, here's where our growth opportunities are, let's move resources to support that. Here's where, we think we need to pull resources back, and so forth. Very hard to get that sort of systemic view. And it relates to a whole lot of other issues like how you govern innovation and how you think about resource allocation. But it's really hard to get that organization-wide view, and even if you have that view, to make the necessary changes. I call that Deft resource allocation across the whole entity. And it goes with agility as well, because if you can't move resources around in an agile way, you're kind of stuck with whatever it was you built yesterday. You can't really make a change. That's the third thing. Fourth thing is innovation, but innovation as an actual proficiency. And I would say most of the companies I work with today are still in what I call innovation theater. You all know innovation theater. You all know innovation theater, right? We put everybody in an airplane. We send them to Silicon Valley, right? They ride around on the Google bikes. They get their picture taken next to the Facebook sign. They sit in the Palo Alto coffee shops and sort of suck up some of that Silicon Valley fairy dust. And then they come back to Akron or New York or wherever they came from, and the organization is remarkably unchanged. And maybe they come back and they have, we'll do an innovation boot camp, right? Anybody been to an innovation boot camp? You've escaped that so far. How have you escaped that? Let me describe it for you. We all get together and we're going to ideate. It's going to be great. And we're going to have Post-it notes, lots of them. They're going to be all over the wall. 1,000 Post-it notes meet a grisly death as we ideate. And then the ideas have nowhere to go. And so we have this fantastic Friday ideation session, and then we go back to work on Monday, and it's exactly the way it was before. So to really build innovation proficiency, you need to have three things. The ability to indeed capture and get good ideas. That's very seldom the problem. Most organizations have more ideas than they know what to do with. The second problem, which is much more difficult, is this bit here. How do I go from having an idea to creating something that maybe a customer will pay for? I call that incubation, how you go through idea to proof of concept or minimum viable product or whatever your particular buzzword of the month is for it, but something that a customer will say, yes, I would buy that, right? And then you have acceleration, which is this bit here, right? Now think of it like this. Your main business is like a 6-lane highway, and it's going along at 80 miles an hour. Your new businesses are, they're just on the on-ramp, and you've got to bring them to industrial strength maturity. So what does that mean? You've been fending off, legal and HR and compliance and all those people. Well, guess what? Open the door and come on in, right? You've now got to build a robust supply chain. You've got to have contracts. You've got to now deal with procurement. All that stuff that is part of being a grown-up part of the corporation has to now become part of what you're doing. And it's hard. It's hard because the people that love to do this, your blank sheet of paper, let me think about what 3D printing could mean, for medical devices, and let me create a prototype of what that could look like. Those people, probably not the people that want to design your supply chain, right? So I think it's a really hard management challenge to make that sort of phase change in the business when it goes from being something that's pretty much an experiment to something that's actually robust. To build an innovation proficiency, you need all three things, and they need to be routine. It can't be like one person's job to do that. It's got to be inside the fabric of what your company does. The good news is we know how to do this. I think people because we've spent so much time doing exploitation, we think of this as some kind of dark art that nobody understands. Not true. We've got 30 years worth of tools and techniques and practices, and there's a lot of understanding about how you do this successfully, repeatedly, as a routine matter. It's sort of, the analogy I would draw is if I'd asked you 50 years ago to describe your quality process, you would have said, we hire really good people and we train them and we inspect things. We didn't know about Six Sigma and black belts and training and all that stuff back then. And I think innovation is kind of at that stage now. It just hasn't gotten to that level of deep understanding yet.